So today we're going to extend the Tilemap plugin. We're going to start with a auto tile that is this green grass right here. And when we turn on the plugin, it is going to update and build the cliffs along with the cliff base. And we can change the height of the cliffs. And we will also be able to delete the cliffs and they will update. There are limitations, one being that it only really works if you adjust the cliff height to the same height to delete them, but in most cases it will auto tile and fill in the cliffs the way you would like. The first part of this is the plugin. We are just going to add a few lines of code. Just like before, we're going to get the selected node, check the name and see if it is the cliff top or the green grass, and if it is, we will use the function update cliffs, and true means that we will be building the cliffs, not tearing them down. And to delete, just like before, we are also going to check for the cliff top, and we will do the same function but send the argument false. So before we get into code, I just want to show you that the grass is just a simple auto tile. Cliffs are actually single tiles in specifically this order. You have to have the single be a 0, the left is number 1, right is number 2, and the middle is number 3. And I did the same for the cliff base. As you can see, the numbers are in the same order. Now this is important to get this order correct because we're actually going to use Bitwise numbers to calculate the auto tiling for these tiles to make sure that they match up with their neighbors correctly. So in this cliff top script, it has to be a tool. That way it works with the plugin. The active is just an easy way to turn it on and off without actually going into the project settings. The cliff height is how large you want the cliffs to be. The neighbor array is just an array to help us quickly look to the right and then to the left. So when we update the cliffs, we're going to either get a true or a false, whether we are building or whether we are destroying the cliffs. So in this function, we will check to see if it's active, and then we will get the current cell that we are working on. So we'll get the mouse position and convert it to the tile map grid. If we are building, we will loop through the cliff height, excluding the first one, so we don't start at 0. Because that's going to be the green grass. And as we loop through each number in the cliff height, we will add that number to the y coordinate of the current cell. That way it keeps building the cliff down. Once we figure out which cell we're working with, we're going to use this little helper function, which is going to add the tile. We're going to send it the location and which tile map we're working with, since I separated the cliffs and the cliff base. After we are done going through just the cliffs, we're going to go to the cliff base and just add one single cliff base tile. Now before we look at the helper function, if we are deleting, so we use this update cliffs function with the false, it'll go to this else part of the function. We will loop through the cliff height, deleting each cliff tile and then deleting the base with this little helper function that we will also go through here in just a minute. So before we go through the add cliff tile, I'm going to go over some basic bitwise numbers. So we have the single here, which is 0, and this is 0 in bit. This is the left, number 1, right, number 2, and middle, number 3. And you can think of these zeros and ones as little flags to whether or not there are cliffs to that side. So the single obviously does not have cliffs on either side. Now it's a little bit confusing. So this left refers to the left side of the cliff, and this right is the right side of the cliff. But if you have the left side of the cliff, that means there's more cliff to the right side. What that looks like here is, see, this is the left side of the cliff, which means it is matching up to more cliff on the right side. So you have the left side of the cliff, which is matching up with more cliff to the right side. So if you look at these numbers, what this means is the 0 means there is no more cliff to the left, and there is a cliff to the right side. The middle means there's cliff on both the left and the right side, and with the right one, there is a cliff to the left, but there is no cliff to the right side. So looking at this function, remember we send the coordinate and which map we're going to be adding it to. We will start with a new tile. Since we placed a tile, we know that there's going to be some cliff there, and we will start with this single tile that does not have any cliff to either side. We'll keep track of how many times we loop through, and then in that neighbor array up here, remember we look to the right first, and then we look to the left second. So we are going to get cell of the coordinate, the tile that we're looking at, plus the neighbor, so either to the left or to the right, and we're going to check to see if that cell is empty. So what this technically says is this cell not empty? If it is not empty, then the new tile, we're going to add to it either 1 or 1, 0, and that is based on the loop count. If we are on the first loop, so we are looking to the right, we will only add 1, because when you bit shift by 0, it doesn't move. And the second time, we'll be looking on the left, and we will bit shift once, which will make this 1, 0. So again, if we loop through the first time and find something on the right, we will add 1. So if you take 0, 0 plus 1, you get 0, 1. So if you have something to the left, so the second time we go through the loop, you'll have 1 bit shifted once. And so that you'll end up with 2. So also as we loop through the neighbors, we also have to set the neighbor cell to make sure it matches. So that cell is going to be the coordinate, the tile that we're working on, plus the neighbor, so either to the left or the right. We're going to get that number, and then we're going to bitwise OR this calculation to see whether or not we need to add anything to it. So again, this is just another way of saying we're either going to add 1 or 1, 0. Then we will set the cell to the new tile. Now deleting is a little bit simpler because we just take that coordinate and we delete that tile, but we still have to update the neighbors. So again, we have to loop through the neighbor array just like before, see if there is a neighbor, and then if there is a neighbor, we need to take that neighbor, get its tile that it is currently at, and then minus the cell that we just deleted. So I understand that this can be fairly confusing with the bitwise numbers, but if you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope you found this video useful.